Good morning, Leanne, and a very good morning to all our viewers across South Africa and also across the continent that are watching us on DSTV. And we're in Cape Town today, and this is, as Leanne was saying, the stage for the latest in the series of New Age SABC business briefings, and we'll be talking about the state-owned enterprises, and the chief shareholder representing you is the Minister of Public Enterprises. I'm going to introduce our guest to you just now, but under her portfolio we've got companies represented in the energy, manufacturing and transport sectors, and we want to get a sense of how these entities have been performing. Are they doing well? Are they living up to their mandates? And because you own them at home, and so this conversation is something that you really want to be part of, and we look forward to getting your thoughts and your questions, maybe even suggestions. And the Twitter handle is @MorningLiveSABC, and please start tweeting straight away, and we'll get some real-time responses from you. So let's meet our panelists. They're going to take us through this conversation, starting with the Minister of Public Enterprises, Minister Lynne Brown. Thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
Next to you, somebody who all of us have seen, especially when the lights are working, is acting CEO at Eskom, Brian Molefe. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much, and welcome. Next to you, we have the Group CEO of Denel, Riaz Salujir. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to you. Next to you, the Acting CEO of Transnet, Siyabonga Gama. Thank you very much. Welcome to the program. Next to you, we have the CEO of SAFCOL, the South African Forestry Company, Nomkita Mona. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to you. And next to you, we have the CEO of Alexcor, a mining company. Diamonds, I think, is so all the women love you, don't they? So very warm welcome to you, to Mr. Percy Khoza. And I think all of us at some point must have flown South African Express, and a very warm welcome to Ina Tinchanga, CEO of South African Express. Welcome to you. Right, okay, so let's get into this conversation. Minister, I'm going to start with you. 6 of the entities that you report to you, essentially, but you're the shareholder. Your thoughts about your investment, and are they giving us value, this panel here?
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to the viewers as well. Let me just say that I'm the shareholder representative for 54 million people in this country. So I hold the shares on your behalf. I'm very pleased this year to say that all of our state-owned companies have made a profit. Some more than others. Transnet made an 8.2% profit, which is an increase to 61.2 billion rand. Denel has almost made a profit of about 50% on its previous order book. And in fact, its order book is about 30 billion rand plus as we sit here today. Even Alexcor, which is a smaller state-owned company, and probably the most sought-after alluvial diamonds, they've actually increased their carats to 70,000, 50% up from the previous year. But interestingly, it also has an incredibly, and especially since it's Women's Month, they've got an incredibly good outsourced program to communities. And I've just heard that 12 women run a company, a mining company, and have increased their carats by about 500. So it's now at 1,270. SA Express is, in this global economy, airlines have a really difficult time. And much of it's to do with the age of the aircraft, the price of fuel, and so on. But SA Express, at the end of September, when they go to their AGM, I believe because of austerity measures and withdrawing some of their non-profit making routes, they would have saved about 140 million. Collectively, SAFCOL, rural communities depend on SAFCOL. SAFCOL makes profit this year as well, maybe not as extreme as the other two, Denel and Transnet, but we are moving in that direction. SA Express will, in another year, in the next financial year, would have had to do double savings on the 140 million. So that should be about 240 million. But in this process, they also have to purchase new aircraft. They need to look at how they work with Denel and SAA in terms of the engineering expertise. But collectively, we employ, the SOCs employ 170,000 people. I've trained more than 400 engineers in the last financial year, or they've graduated in the last financial year. About 7,000 artisans. I mean, just in Medupi, about 15,000 people are employed. So the SOCs are huge institutions. And so we've got to push them to the next level, because if we want to radically transform our economy, then it is going to be on the backs of the SOCs at this stage, because we don't have that much private enterprise investment into the economy, and much of it's to do with the confidence levels. But I think it's also within the SOCs that we'll be able to change the confidence levels of business and so forth within our domain. The details the CEs can speak to. But I think on the whole, I am pleased we are on the path. And if I listen to commentators are saying things about SOCs that happened 7 months ago, whether boards were dysfunctional, whether the issues that they are raising around SOCs happened 7 months ago. We've started a process, and I'm a minister for a year and a half now. We've started a process of strengthening boards. So all 6 state-owned companies have new boards with capacity and skill. We've started a process with the DPSA to get the School of Governance to train board members in such a way that we can ensure a proper oversight, fiduciary responsibility over what the companies do. The running of the companies sit with the boards and the CEs. My responsibility is to make sure that they run. And I'm pleased to say, Peter, in some respect, we're on the right path. We've started the process, and the SOCs have actually come up quite strongly. This is but 6 SOCs. There are 700 of them in the country. And we, as a department, and my acting DG is here, we've started a process that comes from the president, and the deputy president manages the process to look at a reform of the state-owned companies. So that with that reform will go an interface with private sector participation. Denel has an interesting model on private sector participation, and I think it will be worthwhile us just getting to hear a little bit about that too. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. I think a great overview, and I think you've given us a places to start in terms of this conversation. Let's go around then the SOCs themselves and get a sense of what's happening, just sort of broad strokes first of all, and then we'll start to unpack the detail. Let's start with you, Acting CEO Eskom, Mr. Brian Malifa. 10 days without load shedding. That's exciting for us all.
I haven't spoken about it.
And I guess something is happening. There's things that we're doing right. But yes, you made profits, but it's been tough because those profits are not as much as they were before. Give us a sense of the results and also the outlook going forward, because I wonder if it's anecdotal, or does it represent that we're moving in the right direction, that 10 days of load shedding free days?
I think that 10 days without load shedding is an important statistic. But for me, the most important statistic coming out of Eskom is the fact that last year we connected onto the grid 160,000 residential users, which means 160,000 families that did not have electricity now have electricity. Electricity has a way of changing people's lives in a very dramatic way, because you have to walk to a wall and push a button on the wall and the light comes on. You have to, it makes cooking easier for women in rural areas who have to go and fetch wood. They no longer have to do so. And that number, if you look at the last 20 years, is in fact 4.1 million connections. So you take those connections by an average family size of about 6, that is in excess of 20 million people, about 25 million people have now been connected onto the electricity grid. That journey has not been without problems. And these problems are not unique to South Africa's electricity industry or energy industry. There are other countries that have similar problems, sometimes even worse than ours. And they are not happening for the first time. It is not the first time that South Africa is having these kinds of problems in the electricity sector. So we are dealing with those problems. We are working very hard at dealing with those problems. But the most important thing is we are moving forward in a way that changes people's lives fundamentally.
Okay, all right, fantastic, great start, and we look forward to another 10 days of the lights staying on, but I think we will chat a little bit more about that and look more detail of those results. A man who's smiling a lot these days, Riaz Saluji. Denel's doing great. I mean, it's just growing in leaps and bounds. Is this luck, or has this been a deliberate process?
No, thank you, Peter. I think when I first took over Denel, people said, should we congratulate you or commiserate with you? Because it was in really bad shape, But of course, with the kind of interventions that we've made, we looked at the organization, we looked at where we are and where we needed to go. We aligned ourselves with the imperatives of government. The reason for our existence is essentially to contribute to the defense and security of our country. And we needed to focus on that specific core business. But of course, we couldn't sustain the business with a dominant client, which was the local defense force. So one of the critical things that we had to do was increase our revenue streams. And we went international. And we looked at the Far East, we looked at the Middle East, South America, Africa, with particular emphasis. And we managed to change the situation so that we increased the revenue streams, and we now have become a sustainable organization. So a few key interventions that we made. The one was increasing our revenue streams. The second one was operational efficiencies and cutting the cost to alignment of our strategic vision with that of government. And of course, lastly, there's this whole, we had to demystify the notion of defense industry and transform the organization so that it's truly reflective of the new democracy in our country, motivate our people, and have a very clear strategic intent. So yeah, fortunately, I say this is not a once-off thing. And if you look at the shareholders' compact, if you look at the contract I've got with the minister, we are going to be good for the next 3-4 years. Never in the history of Denel have we had an order book that is standing at where it is. The minister has indicated it's in excess of 30 billion. And we've become a truly global company. We compete with the best. Just last week, we broke into the top 100 defense companies internationally in the world. So we've got a strong local footprint, and that's our core business. And we are training young people, engineers, technicians, scientists, and we will concentrate on creating a better future from an economic perspective internationally as well. So yeah, we're in a good space at the moment. It's a good story to tell.
Yeah, certainly. And I guess the big question is going to be, once you reach records, sustaining and building on that. But we'll chat a little bit more about that. Let's go to Siyabonga Gama, the acting CEO of Transnet. Now, unfortunately, Transnet's always in the papers, sometimes for the wrong reasons. We'll unpack a lot of those issues, but because we get lost sometimes in those headlines, give us a strategic sense of where the SOC is at the moment, where we're moving, and perhaps just sort of coming off the results. What is the state of play at Transnet?
Peter, thank you very much. I think as Transnet, we're in a good space.
Can you hear? All right, okay, I'm going to jump you, and then when we come back from the break, we'll get your thoughts on that. But I turn to, oh, we've gone to the break. Yes.